So if you're a Zelda fan that keeps up with Nintendo news and rumors, you are probably no stranger to the conversation around the Zelda Wind Waker HD and or Twilight Princess HD potentially being ported to the Nintendo Switch console, as we've covered it numerous times on the channel in a hopeful tone that Nintendo may still bring these games over and not leave them behind on the Wii U. However, in today's video, I want to boot up Wind Waker together and have that conversation for Zelda fans of what to do if Nintendo does indeed leave these classic 3D Zelda titles to die on the Wii U. We have to talk about it now. What's up, Nation? If it's your first time on the channel, make sure you join Sunbro Nation by subscribing below, hit the like button on this video if you enjoy it today, and make sure you turn on your bell notification icon so you're kept up to date with all the newest gaming news. Now, as I mentioned, guys, today we are booting up Zelda Wind Waker HD on the Wii U. Hopefully not the only way to continue to experience this game going forward, but we do have to have that reality check at this point in time that even though there were multiple gaming journalists and various leaks and rumors and people suggesting that yes, Nintendo has these games done and ready to go, they will be on the Nintendo Switch, we just don't know when. And then you had a lot of the talk turn into, well, the way that Nintendo will release these is if they need something like more development time for Breath of the Wild 2, because Nintendo rather likes to have one new Zelda game per calendar year on the Nintendo Switch. That's how they've done it this entire generation, and they've even been quoted directly saying that. So a lot of fans are expecting, like, yes, we now have the delay of Breath of the Wild 2. We figured that something like a summertime direct would have been the perfect time to announce these if they were ready to go. We didn't get a summertime direct, and now we're looking towards maybe September. However, you do have to have that stop and pause and think, well, September is pretty dang close to the end of the year, and then we're talking about spring 2023 for Zelda Breath of the Wild 2. So there is a realistic possibility and scenario that if these games don't come out by the end of the year, we are most likely waiting for something like 2024 or even beyond. So it's going to be something that we have to kind of have that start to, if you want to experience these games as a Zelda fan, what do you do in this scenario? Because while I am somewhat hopeful that Nintendo could throw us a curveball and a swerve at something like the September Direct, and then we get these games announced and they're out, they would have to be out very soon after, probably that same month or October, November at the latest. But, you know, spring 2023, most likely it's going to be March, right, for Zelda Breath of the Wild 2. At least that's what I would expect it to be. So, you know, they're not going to launch two, you know, like a major brand new marquee Zelda title, 3D being Breath of the Wild 2, and have it like right off the heels of Wind Waker and Twilight Princess HD. So the conversation in today's video is, of course, if you're a Zelda fan and you want to play these games, which I would encourage all Zelda fans to do, whether or not you played them back on the GameCube and you just have heavy nostalgia for them, or if you're somebody who actually, you know, played the HD versions maybe once upon a time, but you want to play them on the Switch, well, that's going to be kind of where the conversation goes, because I think especially for people who slept on the Wind Waker, and that's the reason why booting this one up, because even myself included, when I first saw the art style for this thing, I was definitely in that camp of like, okay, we just came off of Zelda Majora's Mask, and then before that Ocarina of Time, and, you know, having such a serious feel to it, and you see the art style being cel shaded with the Wind Waker, and you kind of almost immediately associate it with like a casual kiddie style Zelda game. And the reality is that the story of this Zelda game and some of the action and gameplay mechanics surrounding it are truly top-notch, and this is arguably one of my favorite Zelda games of all time. Haven't played it in quite a while, and I will tell you guys, just progressing through to get towards the end of this first dungeon and show you the boss fight, and we'll probably set sail on sea briefly after this. Just this has me wanting to completely replay and re-experience this classic game again. And so is the video really going to be me telling you to go buy a Wii U if Nintendo doesn't port these games over? I'm going to argue that it's worth it at this point in time, not just for these games. Of course, they would be a big selling point. The Wii U only sold 13 million copies, or just over that. The Switch is 100+ million install base. I still think Nintendo will bring these games eventually because it makes business sense to do so, but we might very well be waiting until 2024, 2025 or beyond. And if you're in that scenario and you want to go back and experience these games, The Wii U, while expensive, you can find it used online, and I'll have the eBay prices, the average, basically between 150 on the low end to 200 on the high end from what I saw for fully working 32 gig Wii U with the controller, everything intact. But then you still have to have the conversation of the games themselves, which of course are an expense. But if you are a Zelda fan who wants to experience these games in the best way, and absolutely the HD games are the definitive way to play, not to mention, every time I pick up this Wii U controller, I have a little bit of throwback nostalgia for just how well this controller works for Zelda games specifically, because you have your inventory, your map, it's all works seamlessly. I didn't like how bulky the Wii U controller was, but the dual screen mechanic is really something special. Not to mention with the Wii U, you're also getting a full-on Wii, and you can play all of those games. And if you do decide to purchase something like this at, let's say the September Direct doesn't happen, you decide to purchase a Wii U, you technically have until, I believe it's March of 2023, when Nintendo will stop allowing brand new purchases through the digital shop, which I would still prefer to pick up this game physically if I were you, both this and Twilight Princess HD rather. But you can buy this game on the Wii U eShop right now for $19.99, which is just absolutely insane. So that would be one cheap way to go back and experience this one. I just think it's one that Zelda fans have to go back and experience. And we'll talk about a couple of the mechanics here in a second. I'm going to skip through some of the cutscenes real quick, so we'll come right back. So we are going to make the wind blow south and get on with our adventure. But the unique mechanics of this game is really something to be appreciated, because I just don't think people understand how much they mastered the formula of a 3D Zelda game, kind of like at its prime almost in this. And you know, Twilight Princess HD arguably being one of the best Zeldas as well, but the feeling of like the open world where you sail in the sea, which of course some people would complain about, that you actually, you know, you do actually have travel time. Like there's legitimately time in between, sailing in between different islands and things, and you have the map, which of course our fish friend is about to mark the different squares on the map. I found this part of the game to be almost therapeutic and relaxing while going through it, and collecting all the different map pieces is great. And with the HD cell shaded art style, I think Wind Waker looks better than ever. I actually think that the HD port of Wind Waker looks better than Twilight Princess because of the cell shaded art style. It really just stands out. And you know, nowadays looking back, it doesn't bother me that it's, you know, Toon Link and that it has a little bit more of that innocent look to it. I still think that the core game that's here, and the story, and the fact that Hyrule is flooded, and I won't give away a ton of stuff, but of course, like, you know, you're really tying this into like a great like Master Sword style adventure towards the end of it, and towards the middle rather. And you have a few dungeons you have to go conquer. Of course, coming from Dragon Roost Island, we just conquered the first one. You have different islands along the way that you'll notice that this one's on fire right here, which I believe we come back after we get the ice arrows for that. But there's, you know, this is a grand Zelda adventure at its finest, and I really hope that Nintendo doesn't leave these things to die on the Wii U, because almost every other main Switch or Wii U title that has a mainline following, like your Marios and all the different Donkey Kong even, you know, we got those games brought over to the Switch. The reason why there's so many Wii U ports on the Switch is because of that sales factor, and that the console didn't perform very well. And so Nintendo has easy ports on their hand, because you guys can see it on film. I mean, the quality of this. Now, granted, I believe both of these run at 30 FPS. Maybe they could be upgraded to 60 for an even smoother experience, but they don't have to do anything. This thing's ready to go. It's absolutely, I mean, it looks beautiful. I would argue that this game, to me, especially with its unique art style and up-res to HD, looks as good, if not better, than many games on the Switch. So they're easy ports, and I hope that Nintendo still does them. But if we are going to have that reality check that there's a possibility that these games don't come over at all, or maybe we have to dodge these tornadoes here, we'll get swept up. If we're in that scenario where you want to play these classic 3D Zelda games and you don't know when they're coming out, because clearly we don't at this point in time, and maybe you hold out just enough hope until we get past this last, then this has a cool story element to it with the different pearls. We'll come back here later on as well. Let's see where we're at on our map, which I only have to look down to see. That's so cool. I mean, if I want to, I guess, oh, you know what, I think I can switch it to the other. Well, we won't get sidetracked here, but basically I can look down and see which square I'm at to progress to where I need to go in the story. you know, if you're somebody who wants to go back and experience these games and not be in the dark, if you wait until the September Direct and we still don't get them, well, at that point, a Wii U is going to be the best way to experience Legend of Zelda Wind Waker HD and Twilight Princess HD. Well, really the only way to experience the HD versions. And the only other thing that I could maybe see Nintendo doing, because of course, Ocarina of Time and Majora's Mask both got remasters on the 3DS, and they're definitely better versions in my opinion. People have their gripes with Majora's Mask, and I understand those gripes. They did definitely make some missteps with that particular port of the title, but Nintendo chose to not throw those versions on the Switch, but rather bring N64 games to Nintendo Switch Online, and that's how we can experience those titles on our Switches, right? So I could see a world where Nintendo decides to, in a couple years, add GameCube library of games to NSO as well. And then Wind Waker and Twilight Princess are two of the standout titles that would make you subscribe to probably that additional pricing tier that they would launch if they did ever include things like the Wind Waker. So that's kind of like the other way that I could see these games coming over to the Switch if the ports aren't done. But I'm still going to be on the fence on waiting until the September Direct. I haven't lost all hope, but I will tell you transparently at this point, since we haven't heard anything around them, and we really don't know if Nintendo's planning anything officially at all with these games. Yeah, it might be time to start looking into that used market for Wii U. If you've been kind of holding off on making your decision and waiting for Nintendo, you may just, to be on the safe side, wait until the September Direct, if we do indeed get that, which I'm expecting us to do so, but I also expected one in June, and here we are in mid to late July without any kind of mainline Direct. But that mini partner showcase was fine. I just want to see more first party Nintendo stuff, but we won't go on too much longer here. We'll just call the video because we are fastly approaching the path to the second temple in this game. And you know, I just wanted to share some of my nostalgia for Wind Waker. Anytime I get a excuse to boot up the games and have conversations around them, I absolutely enjoy it. And hopefully, if you guys haven't played one or both, being Wind Waker and Zelda Twilight Princess HD, that you can at some point do so. Even if you just played them once back on the GameCube, maybe you don't own them anymore. These are the definitive versions of the game, and they've made numerous enhancements, and they definitely play just fantastic in 2022. But I want to hear from you guys at this point in the video, all your personal thoughts and nostalgia for these 3D Zelda games. Have you checked them out yet? Are you somebody who's newer to the Zelda universe through games like Breath of the Wild, or maybe you skipped up on these because of the art style, or just something in your life didn't work out at the time where you were able to play through them? I want to hear from you personally on all your different nostalgia for the titles, if you want to play them, if you may consider getting a Wii U, or if you think Nintendo may have a surprise up their sleeve and you're going to be waiting at that September Nintendo Direct, that maybe we still get these games in something like 2022. So regardless of your thoughts and feelings on everything we talked about today, I do look forward to hearing from you all in the comments down below before you leave the video, as I do look forward to getting a back and forth conversation started with you all around this topic. Go watch yesterday's video next if you haven't already, where we discuss a long forgotten Nintendo IP potentially being set for a return soon, as well as a massive Nintendo Switch 2022 summertime game being leaked ahead of its release. Also, make sure you like, subscribe, turn on your notification bell, and I will see you guys in the next video.